Nice to see you all. Thank you for coming. My name is Cleary Simpson, and I'm CEO of the Research Foundation. I want to welcome all of you to Boston, to the Royal Sonesta, and to the CMT Research Foundation's Global Convention. Also, I'd like to welcome our virtual attendees. I think we have quite a group on the phone, and we are lucky enough to have our friend Dr. Rob Pryor, who is going to make sure that the people on the phone, on Zoom, can ask their questions. So what I'd like to do from a housekeeping perspective is, if you want to ask questions in the room, we have people running around with microphones, so please make sure you use the microphone so the people on Zoom can hear the question and the answer, okay? So today is Patient Day. Yesterday, we spent a day with many amazing researchers and industry representatives who were talking about work being done every day, every minute of every day, exciting work to cure all types of CMT. And I have to say that after 4 years of hosting this convention, it was remarkable how optimistic and positive and excited all of the scientists in the room were about hearing each other's work and about collaborating with one another. And there were conversations on all subtypes, 1A, 1B, 2A, 2C, 2E, 4A, 4B, SWORD. It just went on and on and on. And truly hopeful, optimistic, we will change the trajectory of this disease. We will find treatments and cures within a next short window of time. So that was very exciting. But today is your day. It's Patient Day. You get to hear about the state of drug development in CMT. You will hear quite a bit about clinical trials, not only what happens in a clinical trial, how to access a clinical trial, what clinical trials might be coming up. And also you get to celebrate many of the patients and families who have come together to join the fight to end CMT. You can see some pictures around the room of some of our activists, and you will meet many more as the day progresses, some on stage, and I encourage you to go shake hands and meet someone you don't know and find out who they are, where they're from, and what their interests are. So I did want to tell you a little bit more about what happened yesterday. We had NMD Pharma, and you can see they have an area back there with some paperwork, presented some results that supported the use of their lead molecule for CMT. They have started a clinical trial, and they are enrolling for those clinical trials. Martin is going to discuss a little bit more of the details after lunch, but there is a piece of paper back there that talks about the trial sites, if anyone has interest. We heard from some of our funded partners about their data and how their projects are going. And what was great this year was we had a number of speakers who have been very successful in advancing treatments into the clinic for other diseases. And they were able to share with us ideas on how their findings and their process might be relevant for CMT drug development. And I think that's very, very important that we all sort of work across different indications to learn from one another. We also heard from the FDA on efforts to support drug development for rare diseases like CMT. Perhaps the most exciting thing, I think those of us who sat around and chatted and post-mortem last night, the most exciting thing we heard was several presenters discuss data that suggested that therapies can do more than just stop the progression of CMT, that there is evidence that we can reverse the effects of the disease. And for families and patients, that's probably one of the most exciting and cool things that we could have heard yesterday. So I'm getting lost along the way because I just want to keep talking. I think most of you know that September has always been known as CMT Awareness Month. But at the Foundation, we believe in action. So we've waited too long for these treatments and cures, and even for the conversations we're having today. So we rebranded CMT Awareness Month as CMT Action Month. And the action in our mission, as you know, is to fund promising translational research Thus far, we have funded 24 projects, 5 of which have preclinical candidates, and we have many, many more amazing projects in the pipeline. So we have lots more work to do together. So this morning, I want to thank all of our sponsors. They are very, very generous, and a special thank you goes out to Novartis as our accelerant sponsor, and NMD Pharma and Applied Therapeutics for sponsoring Patient Day. So you can see all of their logos in the program, and you can learn more about them. Now, I want to introduce you to 2 individuals who have taken action in ways that have had far-reaching consequences for the whole CMT community. The first, it's my pleasure to introduce Peter de Silva, board chair of the CMT Research Foundation, who also chaired the $10 million Endgame campaign, which you'll hear more about later this morning. Peter will tell you a little bit about himself and all of the action that he has taken to lead the foundation to where we are today and where we'll be tomorrow. Peter, come on up.
Well, good morning. Wasn't very good. Can we have a little more louder, like rowdier? Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here back in Cambridge for our 4th time. I'll pre-announce that we're going to come back here next year for our 5th time, because this gathering just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, with more scientists and more research and more patients each and every year. So why monkey with success? We're having success, so we're going to maintain that success. Now, I don't really like to talk about myself. I really don't. But I think in this moment, in this forum, it's probably a useful thing to do. 50 years ago, I was sitting in Children's Hospital here in Boston, me and my sister, actually. And the doctor said, "You've got something called CMT, and your dad has it as well." Of course, back then it wasn't quite as well understood, it wasn't quite as well known, and getting a diagnosis at all was a bit of a challenge. But they said, "You and your sister have CMT." And I remember looking back at Dr. Pappas saying, what does that mean? And he said, you're going to have some challenges, mostly physical. You're going to struggle throughout your life. And I actually recommend that we conduct some surgeries on you fairly soon, like while you're still young and a teenager. So I said, okay, if that's what you think we should do, and that's what my parents think we should do, then let's do that. So 6 surgeries later, they were able to stabilize some of the worst effects from the CMT deformities that we're all familiar with. But it's been a life full of physical challenges, for sure. But when that diagnosis happened, I honest to God didn't know what it meant, but I knew it was going to change me. I knew that it was going to mean I would have to take maybe a different path than what I was thinking I might pursue at the time. And so, it closed off certain doors. It closed off being an athlete, certainly. It closed off a door to be a fireman or be a policeman or go in the military. I always wanted to go to the Coast Guard. And it just closed those doors off. And so I remember my mother saying, well, that's okay. There's a tremendous number of doors still open. You just got to pick one. You got to pick one. You got to walk through it. And you have to walk through it with confidence. And you have to walk through it in a way that tells people that you've arrived. And this is what I'm going to do. Remember this, for all of us that struggle with CMT. CMT is not who you are. It's just what you have. Everybody has something. And if they tell you they don't, they're lying to you. We all have challenges to work through. CMT is not who you are. It just happens to be what you have. I'm a big student of history. Love history of all kinds, particularly the Great War and World War II. I just find that era fascinating. One of my favorite characters in that entire time frame is Winston Churchill, who was so motivational and so able to galvanize the British people as they fought for their survival, for their existence. And I remember one of his quotes in the very, very darkest days of World War II, where he said to his countrymen, never never give in. Never, never, never accept to convictions of honor and good sense. Well, I think that applies here. The CMTRF was started 6 years ago as the brainchild of Susan Rudiger and Pat Livney. And it was started because, candidly, they were frustrated. They were frustrated with the slow pace of development of treatments and therapies and cures for CMT. Remember what I said. 50 years ago, I got diagnosed. And the doctor said to me, don't worry. They'll figure this out in the next few years. He didn't define few, of course. And yet we sit here 50 years later, and there's not a single therapy, certainly not a single cure for this dreaded disease. 50 years is too long. It is too long for any patient, any family to have to endure this terrible disease. The CMTRF is here to solve this. The CMTRF has one purpose and one mechanism to achieve that purpose. Our purpose is clear. It is to find therapies and treatments and cures for CMT. That's the what. That's why we exist. That's what we're going to do. Now, how are we going to do it? There's probably two strategies. One, we have to raise money. Because our disease is not deadly, thankfully, the federal government has higher priorities. They just do. They're going to focus on cancer. They're going to focus on AIDS. They're going to focus on COVID. They're going to focus on other things that kill people. I get it. So we have to fill the gaps. We, the private community, the community of concerned patients and families, we have to fill the gap. And we'll talk later about what we've been doing as an organization to try and fill those gaps. So I'll just leave you with this. We're part of a community. We're part of a group of people who have an alignment of interest. And those alignment of interests are to eradicate CMT over time from the planet. A few years ago, I challenged Susan Rudiger and her team, and I said, why don't we become global? Why are we just thinking about the United States? Some of the best research in CMT is not happening in the United States. It's happening in Cyprus. It's happening in South Korea. It's happening in Germany. It's happening in Great Britain. It's happening all over the place. And if there's one moment of real pride I have in this convention, it's the fact that we have people from all over the world. All over the world. The finest researchers in the world. And as we named this convention, it is called the Global Convention for a reason. Because we've achieved global reach. And we will continue to achieve global reach. We will go anywhere we need to go to find solutions to this disease. So thank you for being part of that. Thank you for being part of this consortium. Thank you for being part of this community and for helping us achieve our goals and objectives. Because at the end of the day, our main goal and objective, you know what it is? Is to close this foundation down. That's what we want to do. We want to close this foundation down. But we're going to do that, and we're going to make sure when we do that, we haven't left anybody behind. So if there's any doubt about this organization's commitment to all disease types beyond 1A, which we've focused on for reasons we'll describe later, don't doubt it. Every one of you has a place here at the foundation. Every one of you will be part of what we are trying to solve for, and we'll all celebrate when we close down this foundation, which we will do someday in the future.